Russ Price, Hollywood stories and personal security insights, from Hong Kong Stuntman to Bodyguarding the Elite. In this episode, I had the opportunity to interview Russ Price, a veteran in private security, executive protection, and VIP protection. Throughout our conversation, Russ shared his extensive experiences in the industry, including his time as a Hong Kong stuntman and his work alongside renowned action movie stars such as Jet Li and Jackie Chan. During our discussion, we delved into the contrasting aspects of the Eastern and Western film industries, highlighting the unique approaches and techniques employed in each. Russ emphasized the significance of due diligence in the security industry, stressing the importance of thorough research and preparation to ensure the safety of his clients and individuals under his protection. One crucial aspect that Russ emphasized was the need for heightened awareness of our personal surroundings. He emphasized the significance of situational awareness skills, which enable individuals to identify potential threats and take appropriate actions to ensure their safety. By being mindful of our environment and staying alert, we can better protect ourselves and those around us. Additionally, Russ and I touched on the topic of testosterone boosters and their impact, and how much the state supplement has helped him. While expressing admiration for professional fighters, we discussed the potential benefits and risks associated with such sports in the street and outside the ring. Overall, my conversation with Russ Price provided a valuable insight in the world of private security and executive protection. His experiences as a stuntman and his expertise in the field offered a unique perspective on the importance of due diligence, and it was an honour to share space with him. You can find Russ on Insta at The Grey Man. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator, subject matter expert from hownotodie.com.au. And you're listening to my Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, sponsored by these guys, mystate.com, the ultimate daily formula for optimum hormone health, stress management, energy, and performance. 100% natural and clinically proven ingredients, it provides everything you need to raise your game in a convenient, gut-friendly capsule. Links for my former shows are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching. And we're live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, and welcome to my guest this morning, not from all the way from America, which is nice, and we got a gentleman's time frame today. Russ Price, it's great to see you.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Damien. I'm very humbled to be here, mate, and looking forward to the show.
Thank you. It's brilliant to have you on. Always nice to chat to a guest before we hit record, and it's great to start to get to know you. Man, you got a hell of a background, just straight off your Instagram. We'll put it in the show notes. We always record the show notes prior, so the listeners and viewers have already seen it. But,
Sure.
Very simply put, private security professional, executive and VIP protection. Interesting, though, we talked about just before your podcast and bringing that to the general public. So I would like to ask you, what is it that you do? What's your sort of experience in this close protection, bodyguarding sort of realm, and what got you to this stage that we're getting to talk?
Yeah, so for want of a better word, it's such a bit of a wank word. You might want to beep that one out, actually, that bodyguard status thing. But it's funny. It all seems to be. I think I've just since I've been doing this, 34 years this year, I think it is. And I've basically rolled into that from a very strong kind of military background as well as a martial art background, and rolled into kind of. I was in the films for quite a bit as a stuntman, and obviously rubbing shoulders with certain celebrities, all those 80s stars. I basically got myself familiarized with those people, if you like. So, I interact with them as those people. Unfortunately, they're not, obviously, they're the business cards for some large film production agencies, of course. And from there, I kind of just rolled into the celebrity bodyguarding, or as I like to call it, the private kind of close protection work. Basically because it was just mitigating a lot of problems that they were having with the public. So I was that buffer between them all, which just basically rolled in. I jumped straight off a few films. I was involved with Jet Li and Jackie Chan for quite some time, and Van Damme's. Just a few films, some stunt work I did with those. So Russ was always kind of that guy that was always floating around, if not in front of the camera, behind the camera, and just helping the guys along. It was a very such a cool thing when I talk about it. But yeah, I rolled in back into, I don't know if you remember, Damien, but it used to be the Planet Hollywood franchise back in the day, where you had Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and Sylvester Stallone, and they had that big Hollywood franchise.
Yep.
Well, funnily enough,
I can see you're an 80s baby like me.
Oh, I'm an 80s baby. That's the only era, right, Damien? So, I mean, I'm sure there's quite a few people that jump up and down about that. But yeah, I was very privileged to be involved with a lot of the openings with the Planet Hollywood franchises through Asia and through Europe. So I got to know these guys very, very well. So the Patrick Swayzes, as I said earlier, Stallones, all of these fantastic 80s action movie stars I was able to brush shoulders with, as well as the lovely ladies like Demi Moore and et cetera, et cetera. But that's a story for another day and a beer. Yeah, I kind of rolled on from there, and I've been very fortunate, Damien, because I've rolled in from kind of like the younger days when I was in my, mid to late 20s, early 30s, rubbing, more into the entertainment security side of things. And as I've aged, I've been able to evolve more into the private sector and into the corporate sector, which has been great. So it's all kind of just rolled off the back of that, and the people that you meet through these collaborations, if you like, for want of a better word. Yep. It's opened up quite a few doors. I've been very privileged in that respect. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. It's so interesting. It's who you know and who you speak to in a small world. You could be an SAS operator and you don't get into the right world, and then well, I heard the other day, Chili Palmer, Delta Force, working with the guys from Extraction, and then I literally have interviewed another Delta Force guy who's really finding it hard to do any kind of business afterwards, any kind of skill sharing. So unfortunately,
you're very true, Dan. Yeah, it's very true, mate. Not what you know, it's who you know, for sure.
But what an interesting start, geez, I'm glad I take notes. I'm glad I managed to sort of translate this for the audience. But I remember interviewing Eric Miari's kind of like he was a Jason Bourne. He was a single mission operator. And he said he glossed over the first time he was shot. So you glossed over, you were a stuntman. That sounds like a big deal. That's something most people's life dreams are. So you're in stuntman in Hollywood. How did you get into that?
Well, mate, it's funny when we sit there, and I'm sure you'd have, well, I wouldn't say a problem, but blessed with maybe not having to compact and concisely have this synopsis of your whole life. And you're absolutely correct, and I do that a lot. So I'm a very humble guy. I'm very modest. I don't like to, blow my trumpet too much, which I'm sure you're aware. But yeah, I ended up in kind of very, very long story short, and for the listeners, I ended up in Hong Kong. I lived there for about 6 years, and I ended up being employed as a director of security for a telecommunications company, which took me all over the world. I was in Israel for a while. I was in London, Paris, took me all over the place, which was wonderful. On my return, I finished that contract within a 3 or 4 month period, and I ended up working for a gentleman and his Chinese wife, who funnily enough, were in Hong Kong at the time, and they were, how do you put it? They were making those little toys for the McDonald's Happy Meals back in the day. So they used to employ quite a few Chinese factories to be able to do these things for the Happy Meals back in those days, if anybody can remember. So there used to be a lot of hiring and firing of Chinese owners of their factories. So there was a lot of death threats that were thrown his way.
Wow, yeah.
I was then employed by him through a colleague, or I should say acquaintance, who was working for him at the time, and I started my tenure with him. But his wife was very much a Chinese kind of multimillionaire in her own right, but she introduced me to a lady who, funnily enough, was another lady who we may all know, Kim Marie Penn. So she's an ex-Australian Kumite karate champion and a world karate champion.
Oh, wow.
Our paths crossed, and she had her own security business. She then, down the line, because of my martial art background, introduced me to her casting agent. From there, 4 months later, after 2 auditions, my first role was a movie called Black Mask with Chet Li. That was in 1996.
Wow.
And did a few stunts there, and also the finale fight, which lasted about 5 minutes on screen, but took us 3 weeks to film.
Amazing.
So it was a wonderful period of my life, Damien. I look back at it very, very, very fondly. As hard as it was, 12, 13-hour days, and take after take after take, I thought my legs and my hips were going to break off. but I look back on that now with very, very fond memories, and obviously seeing Jet Li and how his career had pretty much just rocketed from that film that he did there, and then he went on to, as we probably all know, Lethal Weapon 4, which he went to the States to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my background as a stunt performer, if you like, went straight from there. And then the next one was with Jackie Chan in Who Am I? So I was shortlisted for the finale fight with that one, but there was a great young gentleman by the name of Ron Smurenberg, who, if anybody Googles him now, you can see where that young man has got to. So extremely talented young man, legs like elastic. So I could see the reason why they'd gone with that guy. But if anybody's watched the behind the scenes footage of that film, you can see where the kind of hiccups with the lack of experience went with that. But anyway, that being said, yeah, I've dabbled a lot with the Hong Kong stunt crew, and rubbed shoulders with Jackie and all those kinds of guys. And that time in Hong Kong was, yeah, I mean, for a young man, you know, coming out of inner city Cardiff, being a kid and looking up to these guys like Bruce Lee and Jackie, and then going to the cinema to see these guys, and all of a sudden you're standing across from these people, go, wow, it's yeah, you know, kill me now, so to speak. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's it, I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So what's amazing to me, Russ, is the Eastern connection. You know, as you were saying, as you're telling your story, you know, you've gone to Hong Kong, you know, all that time in the movies there, and then moving on to VIP protection for the for telecoms. It made me think about Jackie Chan. You know, how he had it so hard in the Asian country breaking in, and then Bruce Lee before that, same thing, working their ass off over and over and over. And then in not in the movies, thinking about William Fairbairn, you know, the origins of what I do with the unarmed combat. Him literally learning his tradecraft on the streets of Shanghai. And would you what would you say if I said that that grounding in that sort of tough place of Hong Kong, the Asian culture, has made it much easier to transition to the European culture? Would that be correct, or is that an assumption?
Well, yeah, that's a very difficult one to answer, to be honest, because look, you know, I think when you look back in Asia, probably around the time when, you know, we might have been there, late 80s, early 90s, you know, the Hong Kong movie industry and the way things were done then, and a lot of that is pretty much the same way that they're doing it now. I think the problem with that was just the opportunity for them to showcase what it is they could do. I mean, if you look back about what they did then and you look at that now, you go, wow, it's just they're still falling off buildings into, you know, Apple cardboard boxes.
Yes, yes.
And they refuse to do it any other way. And you go, well, why? So, well, that's the way we've been taught, and it grounds them. It just, it's kind of, you know, my mentor, Daigor, or Jackie Chan, was also Daigor's big brother. That's how he did it. That's how we do it. So I think it's kind of like that grounding foundation of hardening up. So you're a lot more resilient to, specifically in the European and the Western market. You know, there's a lot more money to be thrown at it, Damien, and there's a lot of shortcuts that they take. The people like Donnie Yen in the world, who's, you know, Ip Man, I think we all know the Ip Man franchise and the other stuff he's been doing with John Wick at the moment. There's always going to be that grounding that always puts him a cut above the rest. So I think that hardness that you get as a young stunt performer, as a young Hong Kong actor, it's pretty tough work, and I think it's a rite of passage, you could call it, for want of a better word. And they wouldn't want it any other way. But that being said, you know, there's quite a few Western European practitioners that have gone over to Hong Kong and done the same thing. So, you know, this is that symbiotic relationship in that industry. I know Sam Hargreaves talks about it a lot. Obviously, coming off the Extractions franchise, himself being a stunt performer. He looks up to those guys, and I can get why. You know, the Yuen Wu Pings, the Corey Yuns, Yun Bao, Jackie Chan, all of that stuff that he's trying to reproduce in that action genre. At the moment, it's setting that benchmark really, really high, and it's just keeping the audience on the edge of their seats, because that's how they learn, right? It's none of the old CGI. This is how we do shit. So, yeah, really, really impressive. And but yeah, to answer your question, that has been a very kind of different bridge to kind of cross over, if you like, from that culture, for sure.
Yeah, and I asked that question because you know, you're in the movie genre, but you also very well trained in actual fight skills with the martial arts, and I know your qualifications are, you need, and I need a whiteboard to write them all down.
Yeah.
But when you transition to the public knows bodyguarding, we call it close protection, whatever you want to name it. But how did you find that background in Asia? I know you're guarding in Asia for those years anyway. But how do you find the background and the skill sets you had held you in good stead for your bodyguarding, for your close protection? And then did you have to then qualify in those skills formally?
Yes, I had to qualify those skills formally. Of course, that was a big thing to do. So that was went through a security company that was globally well known back. So a lot of the core bodyguard work, we all know what these are: protective escort, protective driving, IED recognition, and dismantling. But the big one was the conflict resolution. And I think from my background and from my own self, the words I use are: the hard skills get you the job, but the soft skills get you paid, right? So I think that my own self persona, even though you have the skills and you learn what you should do, the karate and the martial art background, yeah, that's great. But really in the real world, I diversified more into the close quarter and the very quick, very succinct and very concise kind of, don't need to be a black belt to do these things. My job was specifically to get my client out of the way as quick as I possibly can. And obviously, we have somebody else that's going to deal with that threat and we move on. There's only been probably a couple of occasions that I've had to interject along those lines. But to answer your question, I think it's been more the soft skills, I think, which I think we're missing a lot of these days. I mean, being able to engage and communicate with people, de-escalate, how we engage and how we communicate. It's becoming, almost non-existent, to be honest with you, these days. And I think that comes with life experience. I think that's not something that you can buy. That's something that you learn. Respect needs to be earned. And I think, like most things, we need to blend in, and I've worked with quite a few special forces operators, and look, nothing saying that they're not good at what they do. But in order for them to blend into a family background, to be that grey man, to be that person that just blends in, and I'm sure I'm not telling you something you're not really aware of, Damien, but sometimes that can be really difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And having those tools and that foundation, my military foundation, working with a team, because that is what it's all about. You have to be a team player.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to know to jump in where they're going to do it and how they're going to do it. And you have to be that one element that knows where everybody's going to be at any given moment in time. You can't be a lone wolf, and sometimes with these kinds of things, sometimes we do have to be. But generally speaking, that's what I've got my logistic mind from, my risk mitigation mind from, and knowing by experience what to look out for the best that I can do anyway, for the 99% of it.
Yeah.
Murphy's always going to be hiding around the corner somewhere, so we're trying to, try and stop that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've found in my experience. Yeah, so I've just been really this kind of just be nice. Just be nice.
Isn't it? My sergeant major had a sign on his door: "Be friendly, be polite, but have a plan to kill everyone you meet."
That's exactly right. You got it. Always have that plan. Yeah, always have that plan.
You talked about hard for SF guys to blend in, and I was thinking to Billy Billingham, how great was it for him to blend in? He's, I see him with Brad Pitt, and Billy's just wearing a singlet, and he's not a big muscly guy, and he's blending in so well and gelling. Whereas, special forces, the if you're going to call it GWAT or whatever it was, but Afghan and Iraq, that brought out it wasn't classic special forces work. It was doing a direct action mission, going and busting doors over and over and over. It was really just a commando mentality rather than the grey man, which is really what you preach.
Yeah, as you say, it's you guys, it's the thinking man soldier, right? It's all about the thought process, not being the strongest, the biggest. Yeah, sometimes that helps. But the majority of the time is, how do we think about being smarter about this kind of stuff and thinking more linearly, laterally, not just blinkered, but we're looking at all different options. I had the pleasure of working with Brad and Ange while they were here in Australia, 2013, for the film that Angelina did, was called Unbroken.
Yep.
I was part of the resident security team with Brad, and I'm just going back a few beats that you said earlier on about Billy Billingham. It's also that part of that family royalty, if you want a better word. You know, you're looking at Brad Pitt and you're looking at Angelina, and they had the kids. They also know what kind of person they're looking for too, because obviously, you know, they're not there 24/7. They've got work to do.
Yep.
So who their children around is also very, very important. So not everybody, you know, is up for that kind of task.
Yep.
Whereas Billy, in this kind of respect, you know, you wouldn't even think, if you wouldn't look at the guy, you wouldn't go, warrant officer, XSAS, you got to be kidding me. I mean, you know, you look at Billy and you go, wow, because that's the kind of person and the persona that he exudes, the confidence, and he knows that he can.
Yep.
You can just blend in with. You can dine with kings and dine with paupers, right? And this is
exactly.
Yeah, this is what it's all about. And my father used to say to me, he said, "Do you know what a good SF operator is, Russ?" I said, "No, what's that, mate?" He said, "An SF guy is someone that can disguise himself as a Guinness bottle and speak 6 languages."
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to. There's a couple of things I want to not miss before I push on there. You said
Sure.
about the soft skills. You know, the hard skills are what gets you the job. The soft skills are what get you paid. And
Yep.
then you mentioned, you know, the ability to de-escalate and communicate seems to be almost lost. That's why I mentioned the kick in the doors type SF guys rather than the communicative ones. My question, Russ, I agree with you that those skills are possibly less, but does it come from the people are lacking the hard skills to back it up? So for me,
Oh, yeah.
context is I know that I can, you know, do the business when it goes kinetic, but that's the last thing I want to do. But you're confident in your de-escalation if you know you can back it up. Or does it come from they're just not taught those things and all they want to do is go straight in and try and be Rambo? Which one do you think it is?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, that's a very good question. And I think that's all down to the due diligence of obviously people who are engaging somebody in the personal protection business. I mean, it's not like dial a bodyguard. It's obviously through referrals more often than not. And it's a very small percentage of people really in that kind of business. Everybody kind of knows everybody to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And everybody has their own due diligence on, you know, who's right for a certain job and who isn't.
Right.
But yet that is still a big problem these days, you know, knowing who you're employing as your personal security or any kind of security scenario. And I think that needs to be highlighted a lot more. I mean, I know there's quite a few people in the Forbes 500 list. You know, I could rattle off a few that have employed people that haven't had the hard skills, Damien, and it's gone south real quick. So
Yeah.
the thing that we don't obviously want to promote is, you know, that shouldn't be happening. So everybody needs to do their own due diligence. That's very, very important. Who you engage through, who have you been through before, and adding your own references and backing those up, because that's the last thing you want is having a multi-millionaire in your hands and not knowing what you're doing, and the reputation of his brand, and you know, can go south very, very quickly. And not only is that good for himself personally, but also for the people that employed him in the first place. So I think it's very difficult these days, mate, to get the all-round package. I mean, I kind of you kind of look at the guys from, like, you know, I'm in my 50s now. I'm not sure about you, Damon, but you know, we've had our hardships, and that's, I think, without struggles doesn't come growth. And I think, you know, for everything that I've been through, it's only made me better and more all-rounded personally as a character. And I think that's helped me in my, so I don't look back at them as failures. I look back at them as little steps to growth. And I think that's really, really important. I think there's a lot of people who are trying to get into this industry, but they need to think very, very deeply about what it is they're getting into and what's asked of them. What we don't want to do is water this process down, because you hear about that a lot, this process being watered, supply and demand. We can't do that. And that goes across many other different professions. But you have to be aware of the fact that it's not just your client. You just got to basically see them as if you're taking your own family on a family holiday. They're the most important asset you will have, so you need to look after them as much as you would looking after your own family. And, you know, that comes with experience also.
Yes.
But yeah, to answer your questions, mate, yes, there is that hopefully will get a lot better. But again, it's down to the formal training. It's down to who you're engaging with, and what surprises me more than anything else is how these guys are getting to the positions that they're getting to on a not what you know, but who you know kind of scenario, and dealing with some really important people, which is a big no go. Yeah.
It's an interesting gig, close protection, bodyguarding. You go along and do your course, and it's all bells and whistles and driving and shooting and escorting, all those things. But as you say, the day to day isn't that. It's looking after the family, and talking to Greg Johnson, New Zealand SAS, and another show. That's the last thing you want to do is get into a fight. The last thing you want to do is get into a situation, drive them into a situation, walk them into a situation where that even had the chance of occurring. The former head bodyguard of of Kevin Rudd, actually, Gary Fahey, another guest. He states his job is to run and hide with you, guy, run and hide. But I'm just thinking, as you say, it's who you know. When do you get to display those skills? If I go shooting with you, we go do a room or whatever. I get to see your skills beside mine, and okay, well, cool. That's what I know he can do the job. Then we'll go have a beer and talk and things, and I know you got a level, but you don't get to see that level. You did it in the training course. Maybe you do it on a familiarization day or other training day, but that's far and few between when you're actually doing the job. So that must be a tough gig. I mean, it's not my scene. I'm in a different world. I also a tough gig for yourself to see, for people to choose quality, because those things have to be second nature. And I'm not saying it to you, as I'm telling to the audience, to be able to drive evasively, to be able to pull the gun if you're in a place you're beyond, whatever you've got to do, those have to be second nature, but they hardly have to be pulled out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're 100% you hit the nail on the head there, mate, because I'm just finding a lot these days that people aren't as and we'll go back to that post that you did with regards to that stabbing in France. And
oh yes,
it's all about, what I'm trying to instill into a lot of people is it has to be second nature. Absolutely correct. Enough is enough. It's almost like you instinctively sit in the car and you put your seatbelt on. You instinctively put the indicator, if you turn left, you turn in right. So it may sound like it's a lot of information that you need to digest, but gone are the days where you can just sit there and be in your own little bubble, whether it's with yourself, with your wife, with your loved ones, with your grandchildren. You need to have your head on the swivel and look for those indicators. You just do, because it's not so much about being here domestically, whether we're in Australia, whether we're in New Zealand, but the world is now open again. People are flying to different countries. There's masses of different geopolitical kind of traumas that are happening at the moment. And you just have to be more aware about yourself, where you're going, where you're staying, what's your plan, what's your itinerary. It's not an excuse anymore. And unfortunately, these are kind of the things that are happening, which you don't want to happen, because unfortunately, like most things, isn't it, Damien, it happens before somebody does anything about it. And God forbid, being that family on that day, you have to be instinctually, this flight or fright kind of thing.
Yep.
You have to throw yourself between that problem and that person, whether it's your wife, your kids, and that needs to be instinctual. It doesn't matter. Get in there, deal with it. Don't just sit there and go, "Oh my God, what's just happened?" You need to, and this is the real hard thing, mate, because people deal with things in so many different ways, and the majority of the time is that they freeze because they've never had to go through those kinds of traumas before.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
Rightly so.
Yeah, and it's time for that to stop, and people have to start educating themselves with whatever they can arm themselves with. If it's knowing what the indicators are, taking ourselves away from a potentially bad situation, and I'll feel it in my gut. And if you don't trust your gut, and I know if I'm going somewhere and I feel that in my gut, and I'm going, this doesn't feel right, let's go. And that's been the job, right? It's us to overt and stop a potential problem from happening. So that ain't going to work. We're going to go there. And that's what I've taken upon myself now, Damien. And that's pretty much, I've got an ebook on there, but just some basic information. And through the Grey Man podcast, and I'm sure, you're like-minded in this too. is needing to share this information with as many people that you possibly can, and getting it out there and saying, listen, you need to read, you need to educate and make your life a little bit more safer, and stop with the 45 and look up and live, right?
Yeah, look, you segued perfectly, because I was just going to say that, that's literally what you're doing in your show with the Grey Man podcast. Every person, every SF guy, every professional guy I've met enjoys sharing their knowledge. Dan Cooper, SASR, 19 years. He said, 10 years ago he wouldn't have. How do I get my secret of pulling the trigger? Not going to tell anybody, it's my secret. But now we share it. So this is beautiful. What you're doing is sharing, decades of close protection skills for, as you said, literally Angelina Jolie, but for the average person. And that could mean literally, I can see that doesn't look right. That guy is looking a bit weird. Let's just get up and move away. That doesn't mean you had to go John Wick on them. And thank you so much for mentioning the article I wrote for Software, because again, when I teach these things, I say, look, you should freeze. That's instinct.
Yeah.
But now we know that the situation is different, like you said. Now you're aware of what's going on. You now have to make a different choice. We now have to make you choose to save your life or the life of your loved one. You have to, and I love that you weren't tied to a martial art. You weren't tied to this. It could just be seeing what's going on, moving away. That's literally the bodyguard's job.
Exactly.
Yeah, gone are the days where it's safe in a playground. What a crazy world we live in. But let's go and say let's take some ownership of it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And and there's a strong reiteration on that too. I mean, it does happen in Australia. And look, Australia isn't Australia anymore. Let's be fair. And it's not, she'll be right, mate, anymore. There's still just as much a problem here in Australia as there is globally. But it's very, very important. Like I said, the most important thing is, it's not a military maneuver. Sometimes it feels like it when you're taking your family away on holiday. We've all been there. But I think it's a very, very important thing, and just being a little bit more connected with your environment. For goodness sake, please. I even see it now. I mean, even today, I'm in North Queensland, and the amount of people you see walking around looking at their phones, and they've got earphones on, walking the wrong way towards traffic, and I'm going, for goodness sake. And it is so infuriating, because you just know that if something was to happen, it'll be too late. There's no comebacks.
Yeah.
It's just educate yourselves into being a little bit more aware of your personal surroundings and your environment, whether you're by yourself and exactly with your family, with your client, with your work colleagues. It's very intuitive. It's not hard to learn, but please, it's very, very important.
That you mentioned the gut feeling, and it's great because, I look at your biography, and you're a man's man. You've done every sort of alpha-ish thing there is, with all the belts on your gis and these things. But I love that you had the humility of, you get that gut feeling something's not right. And it showed in your body language and showed in your tone. Tony Blair, he's a great researcher of violent confrontations. He states that every person he's interviewed all said along the lines of, something just didn't quite feel right. But I didn't want to be impolite.
Right?
I didn't want to offend someone, so I kept on going, and then the world has changed.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Look, I know there's a gentleman that we're both very connected to, Patrick McNamara, and there's a lot of his content, and as much as it's just go out and research, go and see this guy. There's plenty of stuff, but just from my own personal experience, Patrick McNamara and his book, The Sentinel, was something that really resonated with me. And I thought, mate, this guy has pretty much just taken everything that he has learned from his time in Special Forces to, saying you're executive in charge of your own family. And I thought, well, how true that is.
Yes.
And those tools can be just as quickly learned in your own household. I thought, mate, that's wonderful. So I love a lot of Pat Mac's content. I love his stuff. And I think that what resonates more with me is the way he brings that over. And it's very easy to digest. But I think what we're trying to say here is go and learn these skills. It really isn't hard. Even if it's just 2 or 3, it's just going to make your life a lot safer. And hopefully, God forbid, there'll be no fatality at the other end of that tail.
I love that you said that, Russ, because this stuff, I don't think it's hard. Special forces skills are the basics done well and done correctly and applied to the right place. But Michael Don Vito, who you may know, he teaches. He's a high-end martial artist. He teaches the special forces guys in America. He runs something called the Elite U. But he was interviewing a self-defense instructor. So you got guys that special forces instructors or SF guys. And then you got civilians, and this guy's a civilian self-defense instructor. I believe pretty good. But he was asked the question: if you had an hour to train someone, what would you teach them? And this guy said, and I was pretty disgusted actually. Like I say, seems like a nice guy. He said, "Look, I wouldn't bother. I think I'd probably make them more dangerous in an hour." And I was going, "Are you trying to teach them to be Bruce Lee? Are you trying to teach them to throw a punch like Mike Tyson? Because I can teach you to bite someone's face off in about 2 minutes. Exactly. I can teach you to lock the door in your car and drive over someone in a very short period of time. I can do something that will make you safer." So I was quite intrigued by that. So, and you highly, I mean, I've seen your biography. It's amazing. You're highly qualified. You're saying you just got to learn 2 or 3 things. I like to keep it simple. You can't learn these complex things. Jiu-jitsu for me is too hard.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Damien. It's the KISS principle, or keep it simple, stupid. And really, I think it's more the will to commit to doing these things more than anything else. And when we spoke about the freeze factor earlier on, it's not really something that you can initially do something about, but it's certainly something that you can train. And that is very much so the case. But, I come from an old school martial art background, and, my black belt was nothing short of broken fingers, broken ribs, broken nose, orbital gone. And I earned my black belt. The problem these days is they're very much muck dojos, as I like to call them. It's not about a martial art anymore. We're too scared to punch. We're too scared to hurt somebody. And I go, for goodness sake, it's a martial art. So, but to answer your question, and quite rightly, there is 2, 3, possibly 4 things that can debilitate somebody very, very quickly without having to. I mean, you can teach these things within 12 minutes, honestly. But that being said, these practitioners need to be put into a situation in order for them to actually switch into fight or flight mode and go, I'm actually going to go this person. And that's the response that needs to be trained. Not like, well, we'll give you these 4 techniques that you can learn, off you go. And when the proverbial hits the fan, it's, I don't know what to do with myself. But so there's 2 sides of that, that bridge, of course. But I'm not a big advocate, and there's so many of these people out there. It's just absolutely ridiculous, laughable at best. I know some of them, but there are some good ones out there for sure. But that's definitely needs to be trained. And Tony Blauer, the spear system, a lot of the stuff. And I see a lot of Clint Emerson as well. I don't know if you're familiar with Clint.
Clint's been on the show. Nice guy.
Has he been on your show? Wow, that's awesome. I'm sorry about that. I had no idea, but he there's a lot of obviously a lot of correspondence he's putting out there, which is absolutely wonderful. So I'd implore listeners, it's not just all about us. As much research and as much information that you can get is the better. And there's a series of books that he's brought out, as well as a lot of stuff he does online. So very succinct, short things that you can do, whether that's boxing, whether that's whatever. It's a very relatively easy thing to do, to put that into practice, correct? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I just want to touch on something you mentioned there, which was essentially flicking the switch. I'm paraphrasing what you said.
Yes.
You can have skills, but if you can't flick the switch, they're useless. Now, I was teaching a seniors course some time ago. Beautiful people, up to 84 years old. With injuries and with disabilities. But hey, what if someone tries to hurt them or take their things? For the first couple of hours, a lot of their they're beautiful to teach. Like I said, a lot of their questions were like, "Oh, that's good, Damien, but what shouldn't I just try and prevent this from happening?" I go, "Yes, we should. Yes, we'll do that later on. We'll do this stuff now." And they were pretty switched on. But you know when they really got switched on, Russ, was when on the third lesson, I brought in a bunch of teddy bears and I threw them at them and go, "Right, this is your grandchild. Now let's go." And they were protecting the grandchild and chopping and eye gouging completely differently. And that flicked the switch for them. And I know now that's what I'll use as you teach, you learn.
Yeah.
Most people won't save their own life, but when you let them have something that's important, they can save that life of. They flicked a switch like that. These oldies they were all over it. It was beautiful to see.
It's primal. It's almost primal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a lioness protecting her cubs. It's just that instinctual thing. More than happy to, give yourself over. But as soon as it becomes something that's something that I love, that's something that cannot be harmed, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
But I think we'd have a few problems bringing our own kids to these kinds of classes, though, mate. What do you think?
I teach my boys situational awareness. It's so beautiful. As I'm walking along, I go, "See that guy over there? Yep, see him. Okay, just keep an eye on that." Okay, and that's gone. And we don't walk around in heightened state awareness all the time. You just see it, log it, and then maybe discount it, like you said with Pat Mack with the Sentinel. And it's just nice to have the situation awareness because that can stop things. Or, okay, that guy's walking past, we couldn't move, but just keep an eye on him, those sort of things. But it's no, the stuff we teach is pretty brutal, but it has to be, because when it goes like that, it's a bad day out. It lasts 3 seconds. A real fight doesn't last 5 minutes that you took on the film.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all spectacular stuff for the cinematic world, but the reality of it is now within the first 30 seconds, if you're lucky, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But look, the great thing about family is obviously they see how we roll, just picking up on certain things, as you said earlier, there's somebody walking across. I've been the same with my family for as long as I can remember. And there's things that I do and they're going, "No, Russ, don't you want to sit there? Because that's where you need to sit because of so." And my kids are pulling me up on it now, which is great. So they're wonderful human beings. And the great thing about it is spreading the information and, they're passing it on to their own friends and they're passing it on to their friends and hopefully onto their children. So, which is what it's all about. It's not about me. It's about the bigger thing, and it's about the bigger picture, and keeping ourselves safe and our loved ones safe, which is very, very important. That's the biggest asset we'll ever have, right?
It is. And you started this conversation off by saying, just be nice. It's not hard to do that. And it's a lot easier if we all got some skills, because there's always a bad guy out there. But if we can mitigate them as a group, that's even better than as a singular. I'm going to put in the show notes regardless, but your podcast and your ebook, I'll get some links to that.
Sure.
Can someone that's listening, if they're hearing it, where can they find those?
Right, so you can find it on Instagram. So that's in the bio. So that's in that link tree segment that you'll have there. Just click on the link. Just scroll down, you'll see it. There's quite a few podcasts that are up there, but that'll send you to the Spotify or whatever app, whatever platform you're on, and have a look through there. The last one I did was with obviously with Sean from State, and the one previous was a 2-parter with Jonathan LaPaglia, who I had the pleasure of looking after on the season 7 of Survivor. So he puts his oar in on that one too, which was really, really good. But a family man, and there were some concerns and a few things that he does differently with his life, which is awesome.
Oh, great. And that goes perfectly to Sean from State. He connected us, which was beautiful. He's a great man. He's out there to help others. I don't often think of a show prior. I'll put a couple of notes down because I've got an angle. The angle was I wanted to share your story about close protection, how that translates to other people, civilians, how they can use that and help others. But Sean did connect us, and we both use the State product. And like I really was thinking, how do I approach this in such in an open way that doesn't sound like a sales pitch? And then I thought, well, hang on a second. Literally, I turned 50 last week. The State, I looked at it a few years ago when it was a different name, Be Spunky. And it looked good, but I sort of couldn't quite bring myself to throw that money out again for another testosterone booster. And then when I'm kind of famous for this unboxing I did with State. I unboxed his stuff and I was reading through the ingredients as live as I was
Yeah,
opening it. I was like, well, this ingredient does this, this ingredient does this, and they all lower cortisol and they all excrete estrogen, all
absolutely
these
right.
fancy words.
Yeah,
I'm like, well, this stuff's really good.
yeah,
Um,
I know.
what got
It's
what
nuts,
got
but I think that's the nature of the beast. I'm very scrupulous when it comes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, I was
yeah.
in the same boat as you, Damien, and doing our due diligence, obviously. Saw the background about Sean and Sam and how that all came about. You go, yeah, look, let's just, we're always skeptical, of course. So and I
Mm.
did exactly the same thing as you. I ordered it and I read through it and I went, wow. And I haven't looked back since, and it really has made a difference, mate. And look, I know we do our best not to make it like a sales pitch, but I really can't bang on about these guys enough. They're just doing some wonderful work, and the time that it's taken for them to, come up with a product like this, and the people that they're helping, and myself, yourself, and those around us is just absolutely phenomenal. I can't bang on about them enough. I'm just so grateful for what they've produced and how that's affected my life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's amazing to see the quality of people using the product. And for those people that are listening, it's really just something that allows your testosterone, and males and females. I mean, that's
Yep.
what I've done for quite some time. Um, to be optimized, I think is the word Sean would use. But that the way this stuff works for the capsules and the greens powder is different than
Yeah.
anything I've ever used. I remember
Yeah.
when you're saying skeptical, I was remembering I did say on a show once, I was 16 years old going into the health store and seeing Joe Weider's
Yeah.
anabolic pack or something. I
We
thought I'd be
thought,
huge
yeah.
$30 later, you know?
Yeah. It's amazing how wonderful is marketing, right? During
Yeah.
that Arnold Schwarzenegger era, Joe Eder, but we've
Ah,
all done it, mate. And it's, yeah, you didn't really care. You had Joe Eder on the front doing the double bicep pose with Arnold
yeah.
Schwarzenegger,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
gotta be good. It's gotta be
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
But
Uh,
yeah,
the stuff that the state puts out is brilliant. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely love it. The ingredients are phenomenal quality. Great to have them on the show and great to have them connect us. And yeah, like I said,
yeah.
the quality of people that are taking it. I think I got one of the UFC trainers coming on, Cobes, at
Right.
some
Oh,
stage.
okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow, awesome.
uh,
Yeah.
he trained the guys when they're in the Middle East during the lockdown period.
Oh, okay,
Um,
gotcha. Yeah.
and for you're talking no steroids because they're drug tested, um, and at the most elite level. I couldn't imagine fighting in a ring like they do. That's amazing what they do,
Oh,
right?
it is amazing. I mean, that just takes fitness to a whole new level. I mean, can you imagine being gun ho for 5 3-minute rounds? I mean, it's
Oh,
just I just think about that now and I think, wow, I'd probably spend the next 2 months in bed after something like that.
yeah,
Even if I made it through the first two, But yeah, look, I've got a lot of respect for those guys, some of those guys, and yeah, and what they do is wonderful. It's fantastic. Yeah, from somebody that was brought up with a pugilistic background. I mean, my mother was one of 14. I think most of my uncles, 7 of them, were recognised Commonwealth boxers. So it just came
wow.
without saying that I was going to be somewhere in the line, but they were very upset about the fact that I took the other tack, but yeah, which we still joke about to this day. But yeah, yeah, no, it's wonderful.
Look, it's been great chatting with you, Russ. So thanks for connecting. It was nice to communicate up to this point. And you got a hell of a background, like I said. It'll be in the intro and in the show notes. Um, Great that you mentioned the people. It's amazing. I mean, I organically get to know a guest on the show as it is, but I didn't know that we're connected via Pat and a lot of the other people that you mentioned, which was brilliant. And yeah, just congratulations on what you've done. What's in the pipeline for the future? What's going on for 2023, 2024 for you?
Okay, so I've got a big year coming up. So I've got a bit of a respite at the moment. So there's obviously the normal day to day with the clients and risk assessments for all the super yachts and that kind of stuff, which sounds fabulous, but trust me, it's not. And toward the end of the year is yeah, I've got a bit of a big contract coming up with a gentleman who's slated to be the next Mortal Kombat superstar. So that'll be more to do with the press junket and more of the global side of things. Um, And who knows, Damien, if you're available and you can take some time out, you might have to jump on that bandwagon with me, mate. Who knows, right?
Who you know is exactly right.
Rightio. There you
Who
go,
dares
brother. There you
wins.
go, brother. Yeah.
Oh, look, it's been brilliant chatting, like I said, and I'm really looking forward to checking out your ebook and a couple of the shows there with the Grey Man, because, like I said, those all of us are just paying it forward now. Why not? We just want to keep other people safe. We don't have to hold it in like we used to. It was always
Yeah.
in that secret secret ninja sort of
Yeah.
knowledge,
Right.
and why not just teach that to others people? I think it's a great thing that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks very much, Damien. And I think that's what we're put on this planet to do. I mean, we've obviously had a purpose, and I think that purpose is to pay it forward. On the podcast, there's lots of things to do with like EDC everyday carry for just the day to day, just in case contingencies, just being a bit more situational aware and all of that fun stuff. So, yeah, jump on board and more than happy to ask any questions down the track. No worries at all. And
Yeah.
very much appreciate what you're doing as well, Damien. You're an absolute rock star, mate. And thank you so much for inviting me on the show. And I think we're both in the same headspace. It's all about looking after the ones we love and, putting those big wings of care around everybody and then doing the best we can while we're here. Correct?
It is correct. And for the listeners, I hope you can take away from what Russ has said there. We are a different breed, but we're not there to go out and beat the chest. We're there to help others, and we are protectors, I think, at heart. So you're literally a professional protector, Russ. So thank you, mate. It's been brilliant to have a chat.
Thank you, sir. All the very best. Love your
Nice one.
work and speak soon. Take care, Damien.
Absolutely. I'll hit pause to have a chat. Nice one. Thank you.
Awesome, bud.
Hi. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former Special Forces operator, and check out my new project for 2023 at hownottodie.com.au, where I've combined all my Special Forces training and police officer experience to help others. Thanks for watching.